Welcome to the WanderLearn podcast. I'm your host, Francis Tapon. This is a short and sweet episode. 2 parts in it, completely unrelated. The second part is about training with firearms in Navy Bootcamp. It's kind of surprising. I just never thought, sailors, why would they need to shoot a gun? And it's mainly Ashlee Braut, who is one of the friends of Rejoice, who does most of the talking in that 90 seconds. But before we get into that 90 seconds, I just wanted to talk about interracial marriage in the United States. I saw a Gallup poll that came out this month in the United States. And in 1958, only 4% of Americans approved of interracial marriage. And by the way, Barack Obama's mother, who was white, got married to a Kenyan, and that happened in 1962, I believe. So right in the heat of this kind of huge disapproval, that's when she got married. To me, what's fascinating is that with all the George Floyd protests and all the sensitivity about racial issues, you would get the impression, if you were just some alien coming in and visiting, that race relations have never been worse. In fact, you hear oftentimes that people say just that.
It's the worst ever. America, the racism now is worse than it's ever been.
And then I just wonder, have these guys even looked at history? How about look at a Gallup poll? Again, 4% approved of interracial marriage in 1958. Today, it has reached its highest level of approval, 94%. And what's also interesting is that if you look at the graph, because Gallup has asked this question every few years, and the graph has always been increasing, 4%, 10%, 15%, 20% over the decades. It never took a step backwards. Didn't take a step backwards in the 80s, didn't take a step backwards in the 90s, never has it taken a step back. Even during the Trump era, it didn't go backwards. It's only been going forward. Now, of course, we're pretty much at near 100%, and there's always going to be some people who disapprove of everything. People say, hey, do you approve of water?
No, I don't approve of water. I hate water.
What about oxygen?
I hate oxygen. Take it away. Ban it.
So pretty much 94% is about as close as we're going to get to perfection. And we're there today. So I tell this because so many times people whine and complain about race relations in America. And I'm not suggesting that they are perfect. I'm not suggesting that we cannot make improvements. But every once in a while, I just ask people, please, let's be a little bit grateful. Just for 5 minutes. Have a bit of gratitude. And reflect that, in fact, yes, we have problems, but damn it, we're doing pretty good. And especially if you compare ourselves to other countries, it is remarkably different. Many people who complain about race relations in America or racism in America have never ventured out of the United States. Or if they have, they've gone to places like Canada or maybe England or something like that. But they haven't gone very far. This is to encourage everybody to wander and learn. I've still got some more good stuff planned for you guys. I have interviewed David Green, who's a guy who wrote a book about Hitler's war in North Africa. Since I'm writing a book about Africa, I'm all into that. Right now, by the way, I'm in Senegal. And I'll also be talking with the CEO of Empower, a blockchain technology to help create housing in Africa. And I'm also going to be interviewing someone who has a university on a boat. Another episode I've got planned for you is one with Gary Arndt, one about Mozambique, one where I interview a professor who was raised in Nigeria and now is teaching in America. He's talking about race relations and other things. And finally, I have my cryptocurrency recommendations. So all those are episodes I've already recorded and done. I'm just waiting right now for a sponsor to come out and sponsor some of these episodes so I can get some extra advertising revenue from it. But I do want to thank my patrons for having supported me through all this, because it's really, really valuable to have their support. And without it, it would be very hard to do these things because they provide me the constant motivation to doing it. So thank you guys. And these are all episodes in the pipeline that you'll see coming out this year. Again, this is Francis Tapon encouraging you to wander and learn. And now here's Ashlee Braut talking about boot camp in the Navy and how they train for firearm use. Tell us quickly about the firearm experience, because nobody thinks about shooting guns if they join the Navy. They think about, oh, I'm going to shoot guns if I join the Army. But they don't think going to the Navy you're going to shoot, who the hell, like, guns? Pistols?
I wish there was more practice and more training. I feel like it's very limited into what they teach us.
I agree with her.
Because in boot camp, it's not so much about shooting guns. Once you get out of boot camp, then you can go and get qualified and learn more and do more with it, is kind of how they explained it to us. But it was interesting. If you've never shot a gun, this is your first time to shoot a gun. It is, you definitely learn. Before they give you a gun, you have some practice with like a laser, a simulation, and that's fun. That's really cool. And just like the paper knowledge to know the rights, the do's and don'ts, which is good too. They don't just hand it to you, thank God, because there are some questionable recruits where you're a little scared for them, and they're scared too. You can tell by the look on their face; they just go pale white,
like me.
And
a gun?
Yeah, but it's an experience. If you've never shot a gun, it isn't a controlled situation where you have your instructors behind you, so it's safe. It's safe, and it's cool. I just wish there was more of it in boot camp.
What about shotgun? How was that?
It was shot.
It was just an M9.
You didn't have a big rifle or
No.
a big shotgun? No?
No, just 9mm. That's
9mm, that's it?
That's it.
Okay, all right. And that concludes this episode of the WanderLearn podcast, where we explore travel, technology, and transformation. If you'd like to see the show notes with links to what we talked about, or if you'd like to comment on the show, or if you'd like to ask me a question, then go to wanderlearn.com and click on this episode. If you'd like to connect with me, just remember Tapon. That's my first initial and my last name. Tapon is the username I use on all social media. You can also get to my website by going to ftapon.com. And here's one last reason to remember Tapon. If you like what I do and would like to get rewarded for supporting my projects, then go to patreon.com/ftapon. That's where you can pick up some remarkable rewards for as little as $2 a month. And now for 5 quick favors. Number 1, subscribe to the WanderLearn podcast. 2, download it. 3, share it. 4, review it somewhere. And 5, sign up for my newsletter at wanderlearn.com. Our theme music was composed by Eric Stratman. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn.